Thanks for having me. Today, I want to show you Au2mator self-service portal. It is a self-service for PowerShell, Azure automation, and so on. But give me a second to introduce myself. My name is Michael Seidl. I'm in Austria, in Europe. So forgive me for my maybe tired eyes. It is 2 a.m. in the morning, so excuse me for this. I'm a Microsoft MVP since 2015. I'm doing automation since more than 10 years from customers. I'm also the founder and CEO of Au2mator. You can read my blog, my automation tech guy AT or au2mator.com. The same on GitHub. And on the private side, I'm the father of 2 sons, 1 and 2 years. So private and free time is all the family, beside automation and PowerShell. Today I want to talk about Au2mator. I founded Au2mator in 2015, originally as a web front end for System Center Orchestrator. I'm not sure if anywhere is aware of this product, hopefully. So it is still cool and it is still here to use. But the main idea back in 2015 was to have a web front end to trigger System Center Orchestrator runbooks. As time goes by and Orchestrator is not the only thing you can automate your environment, we added some more automation engines. The main thing or the easiest way is PowerShell, also Azure automation, of course, still System Center Orchestrator, and still System Center SMA. I'm not sure if every one of you worked with System Center SMA. In my experience, I have not that many customers which work with System Center SMA, but it is still out there. And right now in 2022, still running SMA. Okay, Terry. So in 2022, we are happy to have customers all around the globe to support them with our front end. So we have the agenda today. We have a short introduction. What is Au2mator? What is the idea behind? And then we head over to a demo. We see a lot of PowerShell code, scripts, and see how Au2mator works. At the end, we see the license, and of course, there is a community download without any time limits, without any feature limits, so you can do this also for free and use it. We have a lot of customers or companies out there which are using the free version without any limits. They're good to go, so feel free to get that as well. So Au2mator, the idea is that you build the automation, so your PowerShell script, your orchestrator runbook, your Azure automation runbook. You create some initialized data, some input parameters, so as you would do it in a normal way. So write your PowerShell script and do your automation in the script, and at the end, provide some return data. So for example, if you have an automatically user onboarding to create user in Active Directory, sync it out to Azure AD, run the Office 365 mailbox, assign a license, and so on. And at the end, return the data. What is the UPN you calculated or something? Yeah. So that's the automation part. That's still a PowerShell script or whatever. What Au2mator is that we can then provide a web frontend to trigger those PowerShell scripts, those automations. So you create a service, a form. You configure your questions. So for example, for the user onboarding, the first name, the last name, the department, the manager, and so on. You can configure an approval workflow. So someone needs to approve before the automation is triggered. And you can configure a role-based access. So who is going to able to see what form, what service? So the HR department can trigger the user onboarding. The service desk can trigger the reset user password, and the manager can trigger to update any contents or whatever. And then the user can start a request. He's maybe waiting for the approval. Then the automation will be triggered, and then you get the return data. And the last 2 steps here is the part of the Au2mator portal. So it's still same. You write your PowerShell code, and then Au2mator comes in place. If you want to delegate your PowerShell scripts to any users without heading over the complete script, because, for example, if you want to create the user onboarding or Office 365 mailbox enabling, the user which needs to trigger the PowerShell script needs to be the admin in the system. So he needs to be, or you need to store the credentials into PowerShell and provide them to the users. So that's the main idea, to delegate those scripts to users without they need the access or the rights to do the things what the PowerShell script does. Why should you do this? Of course, you need to increase the security, so you don't need to store the credentials in the PowerShell script and provide this to your users. You can increase the quality. So if you have a standardized and automated workflow for user onboarding, for any other stuff, for assign licenses or create VMs or something like this, it is always the same procedure, always the same workflow. Of course, you can save time because you can delegate your IT tasks or your daily routines to the users who needs that routine, and you don't need to take care of the IT of any stuff. Of course, you can save money by automating. You have happy users and, of course, happy IT staff, because the IT staff do not need to take care of these recurring tasks to create users, to create VMs, or to reset passwords, or to add users to groups. So you delegate those with Au2mator and have happy users, and you can use your time for important stuff. So now let's head over to our demo environment. And the first thing is that we just do a demo to understand what the portal is and what is the PowerShell part. So our simple idea is to have a web form, a front end, to add a user, an Active Directory user, to an Active Directory group. So to do this, we prepared a PowerShell script. So this is something usual. You have, what do you need to provide a form or a script to add a user to a group? You need an input parameter for the user, you need a parameter for the group, and you need just an additional parameter for the comment. So what is the reason why we add this user to the group? And then we had a simple try and catch, add user to the group, return all is good, or catch if something runs wrong, something is wrong. So that's our PowerShell script. You can execute the script, enter the information, and that's good. But now the Au2mator part comes in place. So what I want to do is that I want to create a form which is user triangle PowerShell user group, add user to group. So that's my name. Also add a description. I can add a service group, so you can group your services to a special group, but it fits in the same topic. You can configure some languages, and of course you can select some nice image for this one. So the main feature right now, let's select the automation. So here you can select the automation you want to trigger with this service. In our case, it is the PowerShell. So once again, we had a folder RTPS UG, and below this there's the script add user to group. So we select that script from our file system, so PowerShell, and here I can select what script I want to use. Scroll down to the correct folder and select the script. What we do now in the background is we read your input parameters and provide this to you as a questions. And now you need to configure those questions. So that's the same you saw in the script, the C user, the C group, and the C command. It is completely up to you how you want to name those parameters. It's just my favorite to have a C underline, so it's a custom variable. So there are some input, some built-in initialized parameters. So it's just my favorite to have a C underline, but it's completely up to you how you want to name it. So of course we need a nice name for this question. So you need to enter choose user. I want to have it, this is a required question. So the user or the requester needs to fill out this information. And now I can select the type of the question. So of course I can use a text and someone needs to enter a username, but he will not know the username in most common way. He will do a lot of typos, And as you know, if the input is not correct or in a manner way, the automation will fail. So it will make sense to have an Ldap query. So we can configure here an Ldap question type. The Ldap query will be object class equals user, and I want to see the name. So we can do a short test. I have a typo object. Let me see again. Class equals user, and I want to see the name. A test, and now I get all my users from my Active Directory as a table to select. I want to have a table and I want to have a single user selection. So we can choose if we want to have multiple user selection or single, but then take care that the script also works with multiple user selection. So the same for the group. So what group I want to put in this user. So choose group, and here is the same. It is required. And of course, it would make sense to have an Ldap query here to see my available object class equals group. And also for the groups, I want to see the name, a short test, and I see all the groups in my local Active Directory. I want to have it as a table, and a comment should stay a simple comment. It is a string field, it is not required. Make sure that also it is not required in the background in the Powershell script. And that's it. So we written the Powershell script, we created a new service, and let's see the result. So now we are at the end user or service desk user or whatever. So someone needs to request. Let me just change that setting. We will talk about this later. So now I want to start a service. So this is our demo environment. So we have a lot of services here. You can scroll down to the service group and select your appropriate service, or you just need to search for it. As you see, we have a lot of add users to group here. And now that's the result. So we have here a picker to select any user of my local Active Directory. So let's see, let's take Armin Kraus here, and let's choose the group administrators. We have a comment, and we click finish. What's happening in the back? The Powershell script is executed, and the user will be added to the group. Hopefully, if you don't see any problems, but we should see the result here. And what you saw in the script, that we have a try and catch and a return value. So this return property or values will be returned back to the Au2mator portal, and we see all is good. And so the user is in that group. So we can.
Question. So effectively, the Au2mator is a front end to then ask the questions to the script. So your code, yes. the scripts that I would then write and have it execute is kind of is the work from the abstraction of getting the data at that point. So then I'd use Au2mator to give me all the pieces, and I saw you did, hey, that validation of go get me the picker for the. I don't have to build that into the code.
Yes, exactly. So that's the idea, that the Au2mator has provided a structured way to put in values into that script and to delegate those scripts. So that's the main part. So you need to take care that the information is in the proper way put into the Powershell script. So as I said, you can do a string field to enter username, but beside the IT, everyone will put in some wrong values because no one needs to know the username of this one. So you have the way to provide the users a picker, a list, a drop down of the appropriate values to take care that the automation in the background will work as smooth as possible. So that's the idea.
You can get to, I assume you can get to at this point too, is later on that you could do some validation. So if somebody put in like, some bogus comment, like you can't put in some random text. You have to put in, like in that comment field, you couldn't put, escape characters, or you could like escape whatever they put in there and like do some annotation.
You can also do regular expressions. So if you go back to the comment and example, this is you need to provide an email address. you can do regular expressions. So to make sure that the text what the user is entering is in the correct format or way, or maybe telephone numbers. So you have different format in the US than in the Europe. So you can make sure that with a regular expression that someone needs to enter the correct way of the telephone number, for example. So that's the idea. So we have a lot of other question types. We will see that in some later examples. What I want to show you here is, let's go back to the form once again. There is no validation if the user is already in the group. So we take the Armin Krause and we see the complete list of all Active Directory groups. So here it would make sense to only see the groups where the user, the selected user, is not member of. And also this can be done. So let's go back to our form and go to the admin page. And here it is. So what we can do here is, so right now it is a simple Ldap query and object class is user, and here it is the same object class is group. We can do an advanced query and get the previous information from the previous questions with those picker here. So we can rely on the previous questions to show some different information depending on what we selected on the previous questions here. So I prepared something here, so and type the new question here, and that's the part I need to enter manually. So it is this one, and 1, 2, 3. So what we do here is that we want to see all the object class groups, but where the selected user from the previous questions is not a member of. So we just enhance the Ldap query. We save this one. And when we start the request and scroll down, excuse me? No. So we select now, again, Armin Krause, and we should here see less. So we don't see the administrators right now. So we put in the administrators before. So when you select here a different user, for example, Afir Dean, you should see a different list of groups. So we can rely on previous questions and manipulate the output on the following questions. So for example, we have also the remove user from a group. So we select Armin Lean, and then we see only groups the user is a member of. So that's dynamically from the Active Directory. And so you see the list only where the user is a member of. So let's head back to our question types. So just go through that and see some examples.
Hey, Michael, I have a question for you.
Sure.
So I noticed when you're setting up the forms and you're doing the queries, it looks like you're using Ldap filters, which are always really fast. But is that a requirement? Because I know that some admins have a challenge with Ldap filter syntax.
Yeah. So for the Ldap query here, yes, you need to do Ldap query.
I see syntax. You picked it. Now I see
yes.
You picked Ldap query. Okay.
But I have something for a few minutes. We have also PowerShell question type.
Okay.
So maybe that will be interesting. But I have an example for this. Maybe give me a few more minutes.
No problem.
But yes, so we have different question types. So for example, text. So that's a simple text string field. You have multi-line text. You have an option. So you have a drop-down list, but you need to enter the values manually here. We have a bool, yes and no, a date picker, a password, which is just a string and just hide the entered values. We have an Ldap query. We have a SQL query. I will have an example for this one in a few seconds. We have integer, we have file picker. So you have then a file picker, you can upload the information to the portal and then work with them in the automation. So for example, upload a user photo to Azure AD or anything else. And you have a PowerShell question type. And this is something very interesting. That's a new one. And then you have complete unlimited possibility what you want to do here, but we have a good example later on for this one. I want to show you an example for the SQL question type. So we have a new service, which is research PowerShell user. Okay, SQL test. We have a new service, also the service group, which is PowerShell user group. We forget the image. We select the add user to group. I want just, it will not make sense, but I just need some questions here. And add user to groups and questions. So what I did in the preparation of this session, I had some SQL tables here. So what I did is, for example, typical user onboarding. If you have a user onboarding, it is first name, last name, and then if you have multiple office locations all over the world or the country or whatever, you need to select the country, you need to select the locations, and then you need to select the departments. Usually, they should be stored in any external database or human resource management or company management. So you can get this information from this, hopefully the SQL database, otherwise the PowerShell question type will come in place. But in our case, and most of the users, most of our customers have this information already stored in a SQL database from any kind of software. So the idea was to get that information from that database where the information already is in place. So what I did here is just did a preparation, and let's see that we have a list of our countries where we have subsidiaries, that we have a list of locations in that countries. So you see in AT we have Vienna, in US we have New York and Chicago, and for each location we have some departments. So you see the things. So we have Austria, Germany, US. In each location we have, in each country we have different locations. So in Vienna, so this one, we have Vienna in Austria, we have Berlin in Germany, and we have New York, Chicago in US. And for each location, we have separate departments. So now it would make sense to have a drop down to first select the location, then select first select the country, then select the locations, and then select the departments. And that's what I want to show you here. So first thing is choose location. Then the question type will be a SQL query. My SQL server will be a local host. My SQL database will be Au2mator help. Just copy that for the next one. And my SQL query will be select star from country. It will not be location. It will be, the first one is country. So my question is select star from country. Here I can select what user is need or used as an authentication against the SQL server. So you can choose to have a SQL Server authentication. So you can put in a username or password. You can use Windows authentication. So the logged in user to the portal is used as an authentication against the SQL. So you can have the SQL mechanism that not every line in the SQL table is visible to each user, so that you can take care of. Or you can select, you need the app pool user. So what I didn't explain at the beginning, Au2mator is a local EES web application which runs behind under a service account, an app pool account. In this case, this user is used to log in against the SQL server in our case. What you can do here is select now the columns what you want to show in the form. So I want to see the country code and the country name, and to select the columns you want to send to the PowerShell script. In our case, it should be the country code. A short view, and you see the list of our SQL database. So first one was select the country. Next one will be choose the location based on the country we selected on the previous question. So SQL query, it is localhost, it is Au2mator help. The SQL query will be select star from location. So select star from location where the, let's just see where the country code is, where country code equals, and then I want the result from the previous question. Also the authentication, hit tab, select what I want to see, the location name, street, location, town, postal code, and I want to send the location name. And the last one will be choose department. SQL query, localhost Au2mator help. And the department is departments and the location name. So SQL Server is select star from departments, the location name equals, and then the selected value from the previous questions. This. Select the columns. I want to see the location, the department name and department manager, and I want to send department name. Okay, and save. So what's the result of this one? Let's see, SQL, it is right there. So first of all, we select the country. I want to have United States. Now I want to select the locations, and then I only get the locations which are related to the previous question. So let's go back, and I want to select, now it should not be in the US, it should be in Austria. Then I will see the location in Austria. So that's the idea on how you can build those forms and those data validation and navigate the end user or the target users of this through the form to get all the information and to make sure that the information you get or you push into the automation is as clean as possible. Because if you have any wrong data pushed into the automation, it will definitely fail. So, and then you can select the departments, and these are the departments in Vienna. So, and that was the idea on navigate through and to get work with the information from the previous questions here. What else can you do is, we have an example here on, it is new user of dynamic forms. So this is just an example, new user. So we have Michael Seidl, which is joining our company soon. In the background, there's a script to create Active Directory user, Office 365, and so on. We can select the location. This is based on Active Directory locations. You can select the manager. We can select the entry date, and okay, we need does the user need a hardware? Yes. Oh, then additional questions pops up. So you can have dynamic forms related on the answers of different questions. What hardware type do we need? We need a notebook office. Do we need a monitor? Yes. How many? 2? No, maybe more. And then we need to tell a reason why we need more. So we can create dynamic forms as well. So if you take a look at the service, how it is configured in the background. So we have new users. This is related on the orchestrator runbook. So it's just a different automation in the background, but it's the same way it works. We have that questions.
So, another question there.
Sure.
So when, like in that example there, so if you know somebody gets this in, as the sample, so that new user form is kind of like, so some of that hey, how do you do some of this stuff? It's like right there in the an example, so you can look at other examples and kind of understand how to do that.
So what you see here is just our demo environment. You have around, I don't know, 50, 60 services, and I am the administrator here. So I see the background, how I configured the form. If you switch over to a different browser, here's a different user logged in. He just can start a request. He cannot see how this works in the background. But
yeah, no, what I was trying to say is that some of that dynamic content of getting that to work, is that it's in the documentation, or it's just like you can, I'm trying to think of how I, do that. Just it's good to see an example of how things work. And so that's in
Okay.
the normal demo if you download this and start setting this up.
It's also the documentation. So we have hopefully a good documentation, and it's also documented there. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
But what I want to show you is here. So here was the button, the true false, if you need a hardware, yes. And then this was the hardware selection type. So what you see here, it was options where we see the notebook office, 3D workstation, and so on. And what is different here, the visibility. It was not always, it was a condition. And what we selected here is the linked question. So one of the previous questions was true. So that was the reason I checked the box need hardware, and then the additional question shows up. In the background, the automation, each one of these is just an input parameter into the PowerShell. And sometimes I will provide a value and sometimes not. So we will need to take care in the automation that this property may be something empty, or maybe there's something a value. So we have an if or switch or whatever to take care of. So this was this part. So I think the idea is clear. So we have the automation with our input parameters. We can create those questions dynamically, have different question types. But also we can do is to configure a service to have an approval before the automation will be triggered. So for example, someone needs to request a software, someone needs to request a new user, and someone needs to approve if this is okay. Or someone wants to have a new Office 365 license and someone needs to approve. So we have the service request a software in our demo. And we see this. We have just the questions, select a software. It is a SQL query from a software list. And I have a question to a reason, why do you need that software? But this service is configured to have an approval. In our case, it should be the manager of that user which is triggering the request. So this is dynamically. So when some of my colleagues are requesting a software, the manager will put in as an approver, and that's dynamically from the Active Directory. So you have the manager property in the Active Directory. So this is a placeholder for this user. You can also do a list of users as an approver, but also dynamic manager. So the result is here. This is a different browser with a different user. It is Mike Jan. It is just a normal user, no admin, no. So you can only start the request here. And in our case, I want to request a software. So you can select the software list. I want to have Adobe Photoshop. The reason is because I need it. And finish. When you click finish, no automation is triggered right now. So what we need here is that there is, as you saw, configured an approval, and I'm the manager of Mike. So I'm now in my portal, and I see I have a to-do here, request a software. So someone has requested a software. Okay, Mike Jan wants Photoshop because he needs it. And now I can select approve or deny. You can also have a direct link to that. So you directly into that information. So usually if someone needs to approve any request, he is not working with the portal on a daily basis. So usually. So you send them an email with a direct link to the request, maybe with some information in the request itself or in the email itself. And he needs to, you do not need to log into the portal and see all my to-dos and so on. So we can directly go with the URL to that service and see, okay, Mike Jan, Photoshop, because I need it, yes or no. You can do a command. And if you click approve here, then the automation, the Powershell Script, Azure automation, whatever, will be triggered. And that's the main part. So you can have an approval as well before an automation is triggered here. You saw already an example that we are highly integrated right now into Active Directory. There will be a release for Azure Active Directory and Azure Automation only, but right now this solution is highly connected to Active Directory. So we, as you saw, we configured those services before that Mike Jan needs to have an approval by his manager. You see here in the organization that I was the manager of this user. So we get it from the Active Directory, and then the manager needs to approve. What you also can do is you see your team here. So we have a team management. I see Mike Jan is here. It is my team member, and the team is built of, because I am the manager of that user. You can have a different configuration of the team. You can also have a group where you are the manager and the users are in. But usually the idea is that you can manage your team also in the portal. So I see Mike Jan, I can see his details. That's also live from the Active Directory. There is no caching, no syncing, so we get those values live from the Active Directory. And you see all that information. The idea behind this is that you can also start a request for them, for your team members. When you click on the start a request, right now you are directly forwarded to select a service. But there is a setting that we have a step in between, that when you start the request, you can select for whom you want to start the request. And this is also my team list. So I can, for example, start the request for Jasmine. She's one of my members. And I want to update her user details, for example. So I have a form, update user details, and I want to change her address details. And what you see here are dynamic background texts. So this information is from the user object in Active Directory. So when we select Jasmine, you will see here that her city is Parkirchen. That's where we live. Yeah, so that's in Austria. You see the postal code in Active Directory. So that's really live from the Active Directory to see what value is right now in. And now I can change it to Vienna, for example. Of course, you have a drop down or something. It should just be an example that you can start a request for someone else. A lot of customers using this, for example, for password reset or enable the user. So usually after 3 weeks of holiday, you forget your password, you log in 2-3 times wrong, and then the user is disabled. You need to call the IT department and please enable my user and reset my password and so on. We have a lot of customers, but this task is not done by the IT anymore. So this is done by the supervisor or team leader of that user. So I'm not calling the IT. I will head over to the office of my team leader and ask him, can you please reset my password? So he gets 3 weeks of holiday. You can start a request for someone else, and there is also an example to reset the password. Enter custom password, enter that password, and then the user in Active Directory is resetted and the password is set. So that's the idea, to start a request for someone else. Okay, so you saw right now PowerShell, and we talked about other possibilities. You can also do this the same way with Azure Automation. So as I assume you work with PowerShell, some of you also work with Azure Automation. I prepared here something. So we have, this is my subscription. I have an automation account, AA Au2mator, without any runbooks right now. But this automation account is already connected to my Au2mator. So we have on the admin side, we have settings to configure our automations. And we already configured here our automation accounts. So we can have multiple Azure automation accounts. I already did this as a preparation for today. In the background, there's an app registration with the proper rights to talk to my Azure automation account and so on. But it's the same procedure, the same idea, what we did in PowerShell. You create here a runbook. So we have a simple calculation runbook. So just to see how it works. We have PowerShell 5.1, and so we create Azure Automation Runbook, and I prepared that already, so please be patient. So just copy that code into it. So what we have here, we have 3 parameters, number 1, number 2, number 3. we will do a sum of all the numbers and return the values back to the portal. Save, publish. So we created an Azure Automation runbook. Let's see again, refresh. So we have a calculation here. Back to the portal, we want to create a new service. Research Triangle PowerShell user group AA calc. Put it in our service group, what I already created. We forget about the images and everything else. We want to select an automation. We want to have an Azure runbook. We select our credentials. So it is the Au2mator AA service. It was this one. You can select a hybrid worker, so you can then trigger the Azure automation also on the hybrid worker in your on-premise environment. But in our case, we just want to have that calculation runbook we did already. It's the same procedure. We have 3 questions, number 1, number 2, number 3. Each one we just configure as an integer. And number 3 is also required, and an integer, and save. So the result is the same. We can start the request. We can start it for ourselves. That's okay. We scroll down and we choose the calculation runbook. We want 1, 3, and 5. The return, hopefully, if Azure Automation calcs correctly, or PowerShell, should be 9, and we click finish. So in the background, we will head over to, you already see, we triggered the Azure Automation runbook in the background. It is already queued. As you know, it was quick right now. It usually takes some more seconds. So we can take a look into the logs. We passed 1, 3, and 5. The output was 9. So the same should be in our portal as well here. If you see the result, you get return 9. So that was the easy way to have a calculator runbook with Azure Automation, but I think you get the idea. So whatever you put in the Azure Automation runbook, you can build a form as front-end and trigger the Azure Automation runbook. What I want to show you here as an example, we can wait for the result as well. Research Triangle PowerShell user group. Let me see that example. So you have some advanced configurations. And one of the interesting one is wait for the automation to finish. And in our case, I want to wait max 100 seconds. So usually what you saw is when you trigger an automation or form, it is triggered and the automation runs. It doesn't depend if it is running 1 or 2 seconds or a few minutes, especially if you have a user onboarding and synced into Azure Active Directory and wait for Office 365 license and so on. It can take some minutes, but you do not want to wait for that. So just trigger and forget, and then come back if everything is okay, or get an email as a notification and so on. But a lot of customers also want to wait for some kind of automation to get a response directly. So we configured that for the calculation runbook here. So we want to do 2, 4, and 8, and now click finish. And now the portal waits for the information to get back from the Azure Automation runbook, or in the future for PowerShell and so on. So he's waiting and waiting, and then we get the result back. So that's also an idea. In some cases, it can be useful to wait for the automation and get the response directly back into the portal. So that was the Azure automation. And now, as we talked at the beginning, I want to show you an example for the PowerShell question type. We have an example here. So let me just switch that back and just limit to myself. So I have to click 1 less. I want to assign an Office 365 license. So we have an example here, assign a Microsoft Online license. Choose a user, take Andreas, and I want to select the license here. But that's a simple drop-down list. So that's a manual drop-down list of my licenses. There is no information on how many licenses do I have available, what license do I have available or something like this. So this needs to be taken care in the script in the background. So do I have a much license? Otherwise I need to stop the automation and just response back, okay, no more licenses here. So if you see assign Microsoft Online license, if you see the background here, so Microsoft Online license, it is just questions is a user select and the license is a drop-down list here. This we are gonna change to, let me just copy that out for later. I need to change back. So that makes sense to have something which is going to our Azure tenant, Office 365 tenants, get the complete list of all available licenses and show me the available licenses. And that's where the PowerShell question type comes in place. So I will select the PowerShell here, and I prepared already a PowerShell script. It is not nice, it is not fancy, but it works. So what we do here is we talk to the Graph API with my tenant. I already stored the credentials in an XML file. What I do here is I talk to the Graph API, go to my tenant, get all the SKUs what I have available in my tenant, and yeah, I will come to that in a few seconds, Phil, and then go through each result and do some nice array or build a custom object, a PS object with a name, the consumed units, and so on. And this I want to provide here as a result. So I change this back to a PowerShell. I select the PowerShell script and select the read Office 365 license, and that's it. I save, and now I run the script. And sign. I select the user, and then here I can choose run to get the information. And what's happening now, the PowerShell script runs in the background and provides me that array. So I built that array in the PowerShell script. That's the license array. And I get all the information live from my Azure tenant, for example. And now you can see, oh, I have an OneDrive for Business. I have one license. I have one license, one is already used. So there's a warning available 0. So will not select that in the best way. I also can limit the array, the output to only show available licenses, of course. I just want to see that you see the difference, what we can do here. Okay, then I want to have Microsoft Teams license. I have 100 license. One is used, 99 available. So I can use that license. Click finish and the automation then is triggered. Phil, you ask for the role-based access and so on. So usually the Au2mator portal has two main roles. One is admin and one is not an admin. So if you're an admin, you can see the services, you can configure those services, you can do the settings. And if you're just a user, you can just start a request and manage your team. So there's an admin and there's the users. For the services itself, you can configure who is gonna able to see that service. So in the security part, usually each service is visible to all the users, but you can limit those services to a specific Active Directory group. So for example, a user onboarding usually should be available for the HR department or maybe for managers if they want to add a new users. Add a user to group is usually available for help desk users or help desk guys which need to do this task. So you can configure those groups who is going to able to see that services. You also can select a language for each of those services. So Au2mator is now available in, I think, around 15 different languages. So you can select each service to be a specific language. And then this service is also available or visible to only users in that language. So I can change my preferred language here. It is also based on the preferred language setting in Active Directory, but you can change it to German here. So I can see the portal in German or back to English. Hopefully that answered your questions. Anything else to the portal itself? Any questions from your side?
Yeah, so I had a question similar to Phil's. I was going to ask, and I think you just answered it. What was the purpose of the service group? And I guess that's for grouping things together and then assigning permissions to be able to see a service group.
Yeah, you can also assign permissions to a service group and to a service.
Okay.
So
a group just makes it easier.
Yes.
For a lot of services, right? Okay, I figured that was the case, but I wasn't 100% sure.
Yeah. Any other questions? Otherwise, I will head over back to the PowerPoint and do some more slides.
Sure, go for it.
So usually the top services are user onboarding, VM provisioning, set out of office replay, reset user password, and so on. So everything you can touch with PowerShell or your automation, Azure Automation or PowerShell, you can build a form and delegate those to your users or to your service desk or to IT staff and so on. We have a lot of references. Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to talk about everyone in public and recording, so I had to blur them a little bit. Now you're asking maybe about the license. We not hide our license or cost and make it very complicated to get an idea what our license costs. As I said at the beginning, we have a community download what you can use for free without any time limitation. The only limitation is that you can build 2 services, so 2 forms. If you then decide, okay, I want to have the license and so on, we have 4 different licenses, and everything is related to the amount of Active Directory users. So we really count all Active Directory users. It doesn't depend if you use them as a service user. We count really every active user object in your Active Directory. So that's the only difference in our licenses. And that's
Active Directory accounts, not people. So you have a ton of service accounts that count as accounts.
If your service account is a managed service account, then we do not count it. If your service account is a user account, then we count it. Yes. So we really count every object class user.
Yeah.
That maybe that's in a more technical way. Every object class user we count. As I'm located in Austria, our prices are based in euro. I tried to add the US dollar yesterday, but it changed, I think, 2 hours later. So as to the things going on in Russia and the prices are very different right now every single hour. We have the prices on our webpage, so you can go to the shop and switch over to the correct currency, so US dollar or whatever you like, and then see the prices. But it's every time based on our euro prices. So this is a one-time license from 2,000 euros to 10,000 euros, and then you can use the maintenance starting at the 2nd year, around 400 euros up to 2,000 euros each year. You will not be forced to use the maintenance. You can use Au2mator portal without the maintenance, but you then will not get any support or any new releases. So we try to provide a new release all 2 or 3 months. And with an active maintenance, you get the new releases and are able to install the latest releases. So we skip the return of investment calculation, and just some last words. Feel free to test. So you can sign up for the free download community release and click au2mator.com /RTPSUG. So use that URL to head over to our free community release. You just need to enter your email and name, and then you get the free community release without time limitation, without feature limitation. The only limit is that you can build 2 services or can use it for free. Any other questions? You can contact me directly on our website, on mail, on LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever you like. And now feel free to ask any questions if you have any more left.
So Michael, first off, great presentation. You have a really fantastic product. Phil and I were talking in a sidebar. it's a very flexible product, and it seems, first of all, it's pleasing to the eye, the layout, and it seems very easy to understand. It doesn't seem like it would take a lot of training to learn how to use the
No.
product. And I think the beauty of your product is you've taken away a lot of the code that needs to be written in the script, because you put it in the front end through some date pickers and question marks and question fields and stuff like that. So it probably makes coding for the people that are not super PowerShell scripters a lot easier. They just have to come up with some basic scripts, and the front end is a lot of the work for them. But I have to say, in general, man, I have to say your product is very affordable for all the things that you're offering. It's a really
Yes.
great value, really
Yeah.
great value. I hope you're doing well as a business with this, because this is a fantastic product.
Yeah, that was also the idea, to have a license which is affordable for each user, so we see the benefit, and the product was created in because I have a need at my customers. So doing automation and started with Orchestrator 10 years ago, and every customer asked, can I have a front end? Then some of them used SharePoint in a very bad way for this, and so that was the reason why we created those products, and the pricing was really chosen to have affordable and easy to argue, and not to have that high price, and do we can afford it, do we need to whatever. So that was the idea, to give this out and have a lot of customers and help them, of course, to use this.
So I was looking at a competitive product recently for my own company, and the price was 20x for 150 users.
What was that competitor?
I don't want to say, but let's just say it rhymes with Rip Runner.
Yeah. It is,
which is a very good product.
It is absolutely, it is.
But
so I don't want to talk in any bad words about that product. It is good. It has a lot more features. Beside that, we are really focused on the front end of the automation. But what you said has a lot more features. But yes, it is more expensive as well. Yeah.
Well, so for me, the problem was that I was looking to get a product for my company to make a self-service portal. I'm using an open source product now called WebGea.
Yeah.
And I wanted to move up to something commercial that has some support, but we didn't budget for a $40,000 purchase. So as much as I am interested in the script runner product, I have to wait another 12 months to even consider it. I can almost afford to put this on a company credit card and probably get it approved. Yes. And I think it does everything that we need. So I'm going to look into this for myself when my manager gets back to the office. But okay. I think you have a fantastic product here.
So I have some questions like the mechanics at this point, like the idea of that. So it's just a web front end. Is it HA? Does it have HA capability? So some of the mechanics behind it, and what does it take for like system resources on? You said it's an IIS, front end. So it needs IIS, the latest version, those kind of things.
It is really simple. So you need a server start 2016 up 2019, 2022. Latest IIS, so it is related to the operating system. If the SQL server is on the same server, I would recommend 8 or 12 gig of RAM. You can use the free SQL server, so the Express license, and that's it.
Okay.
So it is very, very simple, very small, very fast. That was the idea, to keep it simple, to keep it fast. You can use your own SQL server if you have a shared SQL instance, put it there. You can use the free SQL Express. But you need a SQL to store the data, but you can use the free. There is no high need of any performance or something like this. So we have customers. So the biggest one I am aware of is a customer with 120,000 users. They're using this for managing their B2B relationships. So they have this is a frame manufacturer in Austria, and they use that to manage their resellers. They have around 120,000 resellers in the world, and so they use it on a heavily basis. That's a 2016 server with 12 gig of RAM, a local SQL, and that's it.
Wow. And somebody asked about the web framework its portal's written. It's just
It is .NET 5 right now. So we it is a .NET Core 3. So we migrated to .NET Core 3 last year. Then .NET 5 comes out, and now we are 6 and 7. So yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Ever evolving.
yeah, ever evolving.
Yeah.
So I understand that you stayed up very late for us, and so first of all, I didn't get a chance to say earlier, but thank you for doing that. I know it's probably really late for you, but
it's okay.
how does that work with those of us that are working at U.S. companies? Is support limited for time frame differences or anything like that? How does it normally work?
So usually what is included in the license is our ticket support. So we have a support,
Okay.
so you can create a ticket. Of course, we are based in Europe, so we will answer during our main work hours. But that's the main idea, the main support, that we provide this on our ticket system. Of course, we have additional support, the premier support with managed service and our consultants. Then we can talk about different times and so on, but the main support is our ticket, and that's it. And usually we have customers in US, in Australia, in China. There is no real problem. So maybe we can send them a documentation or something like this, or maybe they have a question related to the automation. We try to help, but mainly it is not included, but automation can be very difficult, but we try to help. But usually there are no problems.
Okay, sounds great. So, folks, we're going to be wrapping up here in just a few moments. There were some questions that came in the chat before that we were talking about, but I wanted to give anybody a chance to jump on the mic and ask Michael any questions before he heads to bed in a few minutes. But I really enjoyed this tonight. I thought this is a really great take on a problem that a lot of people have. You have some people that can write scripts, or they're good at coding, but trying to put it into some sort of tool to make it accessible by other people is a challenge for a lot of people. Like you said, using SharePoint in bad ways, or trying to find, cobble together some web front end. This really solves a lot of those issues for people.
Yeah, I like the fact that the front end is kind of really simple, and then I can really take the scripts that I was written before and just make them as basic as possible. Just assume this, all the validation that you need to work through, go get data, it can all be done outside of the script.
Yeah. So we have a lot of customers which already have the Powershell script in place with the input parameters and everything. So just install the portal and go ahead, just a small adoptions related to variables or something like this, but that's it. So it should be an easy start.
Yeah. Cool. And the install for the product, it's a next install, and then the product runs?
Yes.
Nice. Great.
Yeah. All right.
Well,
thanks again,
Michael, I really appreciate you spending time with us this evening. I know it's late
Thanks
for you.
For having me.
We do appreciate it. We're always happy to show off great products in the community, and we wish you the best of luck with this product and lots of success. Sounds like you're doing great. You really created a wonderful product, and I'd encourage people to go take a look at it. If you're watching this at home, the links on website on page now can lead to the website. Michael's very open about all the pricing information. You can find out pretty much everything you need at his website, and I'm sure he's available to ask questions if you need him. So please reach out and consider this product for your automation needs.
Definitely. Thanks for having me.
Sure. All right. So with that, we're going to say good night. If you're watching this on YouTube, we invite you to take a look at the other videos that we have in our catalog. We have over 100 videos of various different content. If you're looking for something related to PowerShell, we hope that you find something in our repository. And if you'd like to come and join us live, we meet on the East Coast on the first and third Wednesday of the month. And you can be part of the audience, and you can ask questions live of our presenters and learn some PowerShell at the same time. Thanks, everyone. I hope you had a great night.